This is Wretched Radio with Todd Friel.
Well, have you got a solution to the conundrum? This is Wretched Radio, a not uncommon scenario sent to idea@wretchedradio.com. You have a pastor that you believe is less theologically astute, knowledgeable as you. What do? Do you leave the place? Do you languish? What do you do? Perhaps you've come up with a solution. This is mine. I would like for you to imagine just a moment that you're 70 years old. This is a different scenario. You're 70 years old. Your former pastor, whom you loved and honored, has left, retired, and your congregation called somebody who's, let's just say, decades younger than you are. You've been in the faith for 50 years, and in comes the youthful pastor who is 30 years old. In other words, you've been in the faith longer than they have been alive. What do? Would you be wondering if you should leave the church? I think your answer would be no. You would simply recognize, because of your years, you of course have more maturity. You should have more maturity. Now look, our pastors, they should be spiritually advanced. They should be. I think that's just a part of their qualifications. These are not sinless men, but they should be more mature than, let's just say, somebody of the same age. But the reality is, you can only have so much maturity based on your age. You know, with gray hair, that time, that hard-won wisdom through experience is gained. And so the fellow can't possibly be as mature as you are. You wouldn't think about leaving. You just recognize he's not as mature as I am. And I think that's the answer to your question, sir. So you've got a pastor who's not as theologically rich in knowledge as you are. Okay, so he's not. Now, you say, but he's older than I am. And I say, so? It's not his knowledge, per se. It's the office. And so I would suggest that you adopt the same mindset that the 70-year-old man who's been in the faith for 50 years would have toward the pastor 30-year-old. Honor him. Respect him. Pray for him. Encourage him. Help him. Don't subvert him. And be judicious in offering wisdom to him. That's all. Just honor your pastor so he's not as much. Now, here's the good news for you. First of all, the Sunday morning sermon, that should be the highlight of the church week, but that should never be the full feeding of a Christian anyway. So we should be feeding along the way during the week. And the good news is you've got oodles of resources that you can tap into. And so when you go to church on Sunday, recognize, okay, he just doesn't have the theological chops. Get out of it what you can. Honor him because of his office and try to encourage him. Not in a sneaky, underhanded way, but because you'd like him to have that sort of knowledge. And then just help him as you can and be careful that you don't pick him to pieces. And then what help you offer him. Okay. An example. I don't even know that this is a good one. So I was working on an article, which you can get if you're a subscriber to our free Wretched newsletter. Go to wretched.org. I just think this Reformation newsletter will be very helpful for you. Nevertheless, I was writing it, and I thought, our pastor, who is on his way right now to Italy, he's going to the Italian Theological Seminary, Johnny Gravino's seminary. Well, it's not his seminary, but it's a part of the Masters, the Masters International Theological Training Institute Association of people who are associated with that affiliation. It's something like that. It's kind of a long title. I've talked to them about it.
I'm guessing.
Johnny Gravino is leading a seminary in Sicily. Pray for that ministry, by the way. Italy, the graveyard of missionaries. But I got to tell you, it's starting to happen at ITA. I'm seeing the pictures of the number of men that they're training to go out to their churches in villages around Italy, right in the shadow of the Vatican. And that seminary it's actually getting stronger all the time. So our pastor is going over there, and he's going to be preaching on Reformation Day. I believe he's going up to Spain, and so he's doing some touring as a part of the theological academies. and he's talking about the Protestant Reformation. Well, the article that I wrote was about the Protestant Reformation. And I thought, ooh, this could be something he might want to consider using as he goes about that tour. I typed in his name, boop, there it pops up, Ty Blackburn, at whatever the address was. Nah, I'm not going to send it to him. And I hit delete and didn't. Why? Because I didn't want him to get the sense of, you need this. Look, he's a great preacher. And he's a godly man. I don't know if he's younger or older than I am. That's not even the point. Biological or chronological age, it's not the issue. He's my pastor, and I didn't want him to get the sense of, here, you need this for your even if I put it in all kinds of flowery language of, hey, I just thought that maybe if you possibly wanted to consider, thought you might have, I didn't want to be getting the sense of, you need help. So I didn't send it. We need to be very judicious about the things that we send to our pastor. Like, they love the flock. Their sacrifice for the flock is tremendous. And they want everybody to be growing, and they're sensitive to everybody's considerations and their needs. And so when they can get a newsletter, an email sent to them that could be perceived as being critical or that they're failing in some way, it can strike. We don't want to be doing that to our pastor. So be judicious. All right, gentlemen, anything that you would add to that concept? Anything? Anything at all?
I actually agree with you pretty much.
I would, but I'm not old enough.
Exactly. Whipper.
I missed the point.
Snapper.
So close.
Okay. Here now may or may not be. Let me do it this way, because this particular story did not catch fire. This is the story about a pastor. It's certain that you know about whom I'm speaking if you followed this story. It didn't blow up on the internet. It had a little activity, but I don't think it was like, wow, all the rage. And so I'm just gonna leave this person nameless. Now, there are times when we'll name names. When are those times? When it is appropriate. When is it appropriate? When it is a national story. I'm not just finding out some dish from a local congregation of a pastor that the majority of people are not aware of. I don't want to start a fire. I don't want to fan the flames of any sort of bad story. But if it's common knowledge, okay. If I think I can contribute something, okay. Those are some of the things that we need to consider before we start criticizing somebody. And if our story doesn't meet that criteria, then don't. And so I don't think that this story met that criteria. It was close, but not quite. It was the story of a pastor who didn't write an article. Instead, somebody at his ministry wrote an article that could have been interpreted to mean that works were necessary for justification. It could have been interpreted that way. So a fair number of people, like I said, it wasn't a wildfire, but a fair number of people said, yikes, is this very, very famous pastor now a heretic? Okay, that we can ask that of anybody. That's fair. But a couple of things. Number one, while he heads up that ministry, he didn't even write the article. And yet it was interesting that so many people ascribed the article to him. I suspect he didn't even read the article. Now, how it made it through the vetting process, I don't know. So at any rate, I decided to contact an elder, and I'll mention his name, Phil Johnson. I said, how are you responding to this story? And this is what he said. I'm 95% certain that this pastor isn't trying to make justification into a process like the Roman Catholic Church does, or a two-stage decree. As I read, he's simply saying that sanctification, at least the article is saying, is a necessary part of the Ordo Salutis, the order of salvation. He's arguing against antinomianism. If the article has a defect, it's brevity. Could have been clearer. It should have been made a little longer, because we've got to be careful. And there's been more talk of and it's good talk about justification and sanctification, the role of works. There is an antinomian stream, and I think it's starting to dry up a little bit, which is a good thing. That just, hey, no effort, no works, that's legalism. No, it's not. That's called sanctification. And if you're justified, you will necessarily do those works, but those works won't save you, but they are an indicator that you are saved. And so that distinction needs to be loud and clear. This one was just a little bit muddy. And it just wasn't spelled out as much as it can. So what do I do with this pastor? First of all, I recognize, one, I'm going to give him a pass because he didn't write the article, and I suspect, unless we hear from him, he wasn't even aware of it. Number two, I look at this man's life. And while this particular pastor, there are some things that he's done where I just go, nothing heretical. So am I going to be critical of a pastor who has served faithfully for decades, served well for decades, because of something that could be in kind of, it wasn't quite, no, I'm not going to do that. Why? Because there's never been an instance where you'd be inclined to say that fellow's a heretic. All that to say, some of the worst discerners on the planet are discernment ministries. Let's not follow suit. This is Wretched Radio. Shout out to our gospel partners. It is your ongoing monthly support that allows us to do Wretched Radio every single day and provide the broadcast, the entire program, for free to anybody on iTunes, Android, or at our website. Thank you for being a gospel partner. If you enjoy or benefit from Wretched Radio, would you please consider joining those partners so that we can continue to preach the gospel? Simply visit wretched.org.